Hey everybody, welcome back to another fun and exciting intermediate math class. Today we'll be jumping into lesson 1.4. We'll be talking about exponents. You can find that on page number 17 in your book, page 17. So go ahead and turn there, and as you're turning there, I'll go ahead and click over to my computer, and we're going to be talking about exponents today. What is an exponent? And how do we use exponents? That's going to be today's lesson. So go ahead and look down here, and it says that exponents show how many times a number is used as a factor. And that's I don't really love that definition. I mean, that is the definition, but I like to say instead of used as a factor, it's kind of a little bit confusing. I like to say that it's multiplied by itself. Okay, and you'll see what I mean by that in just a second. And I think that'll make sense because that's the way you're going to hear me say it. How many times is it multiplied by itself? The base is the number that is being multiplied by itself. Okay, so if we'll look down here, the number 3 in this example is our base. The number 3 is the base. The number 4 up here, this little number up to the upper right of our 3, is called our exponent. Now, let's look back at our definitions. The exponent shows how many times the number, or we could say the base, is used as a factor, or how many times it's multiplied by itself. So now the base is the number being multiplied by itself. So this is the base, and it's being multiplied by itself 4 times. That's what that means. So here's what that looks like. It means 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. 3 by itself 4 times. Okay? 3 is our base, 4 is our exponent. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Now, we can solve that, right? It's not that hard to solve. Now, it maybe is a little bit of a big number, but it's not too bad. So watch. We're just going to say 3 times 3, and that is 9. Now we have 9 times 3 times 3. And now what is 9 times 3? It's 27 times 3. What's 27 times 3? Maybe you have to come over here and do this. That's fine, but it is 81. Okay? And so 3 with a little exponent of 4 gives you 81. That would be the answer to that problem. So it's really not that hard of a concept to kind of master. It's just you just take the base, in this case 3, and you multiply it by itself 4 times. Do not fall into this trap. Don't say, oh, it's 3 times 4. No, it's not 3 times 4. If it was 3 times 4, then they would say 3 times 4. It's 3 to the 4th exponent. And so how do you do that? Multiply by itself 4 times. All right. What did I write here? I wrote 3 different words: squared, cubed, and to the blank power. These are 3 different ways to write exponents. So let's use one squared. Let's say we're going to use 3 with a little 2 up here. This little 2 right here means squared. It means squared. So if there's a little 2, you typically say squared. 3 squared is how you would read that. And the next one is cubed. So when you have, for example, 4 with a little 3 up there, okay, you would read that 4 cubed. Okay, so if it's got a 2, then it's squared. If it's got a 3, then it's cubed. The next one, let's say we'll put a 2 here, and we can put any number we want other than a 2 or a 3. Any number. So 2 with a little 5 right here. You would say 2, and then you would read this. To the, and then you would read that 5th power. Okay? 2 to the 5th power is how you would say that. Let's do another one. Let's say 2 with a little 7 right here. You would say 2 to the 7th power. Let's go back and let's put a new. Let's go crazy. Let's do 100 to the, we'll put an 11 here. So that would be 100 to the 11th power. Every other number works like this, to the blank power. The first two have fancy little names with a little 2 squared with a little 3 cubed. So if you see that, you'll know what that means. And you've probably heard that before, right? Squared and cubed. All right, next, let's go ahead and do one of these. Let's go ahead and just try to solve this out. Don't pay any attention to that 36 down here right now. Okay, all right, we'll get to that in a second. So this is what I want you to focus on right here. So what are we going to do here? Well, I want you to just write this using exponents. This is how, before we learned exponents, that's how we would write that, right? We would have to write a bunch of 2's and a bunch of 5's. But I want you to think about this. What is the base of this first part? It's a 2. How many times is the 2 being multiplied by itself? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So we would put a little 5 right there. And then we would multiply that by, and then we would use the 5. So 5 is the base, 1, 2, 3 times. So another way to write that, a shorter way to write that, right? Because if you have to write 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, it's a lot of writing. And this is a much faster way to write the exact same thing. All right, I told you we would talk about this 36 here in a second. So let's go down to the 36. Remember last lesson, I taught you how to do prime factoring. So when we did prime factors, we got a lot of factors that were the same. They kept repeating, right? So let's look at this. Let's actually do the prime factoring. I typically like the upside down division for prime factoring. You might like the factoring tree. Remember the 36 and then the factoring tree like that. You might like that method. That's fine. I typically use the upside down division. So I always start with the number 2 because it's the first prime number, and I see, can 2 go into 36? And the answer is yes, 2 can go into 36, and it goes 18 times. Then 2 goes into 18 9 times. 2 does not go into 9, but 3 goes into 9 because 3 is another prime number. So it's the next one on the list. And then it goes 3 times. And look, we're at another prime number, so we're done. As soon as you get to a prime number right here, you're done. So now, what's the answer to this? Well, in last lesson, we would have written 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. And I'm writing these little dots here. If you don't know what those are like multiplication signs. But I think you already know that. That's the way you wrote it last lesson. Well, guess what? Wrong. We're not going to write it like that anymore. Let's adjust now that we're learning exponents, and let's do it with exponents. So we're going to first of all write this base of 2, and we're going to say how many times was 2 multiplied by itself. 2 was multiplied by itself 2 times. So that would be, how do we say that one? Do you remember? 2 squared, right? 2 squared. Times, we'll put a little dot right there. And then we had 3's. So 3 is our next base. And we would write how many times was the 3 multiplied by itself? Right, 2 times. So the easier, the faster way to write this, I guess, would be 2 squared times 3 squared. And that is a way to write when you do your prime factors. A good way to write that is using exponents once you actually do your factors. Okay? All right. So now let's say that we have this. This is what our problem is. We have to solve this. Okay? So solve that. 2 cubed times 7 squared. 2 cubed times 7 squared. How do I solve that? The easiest way, the easiest way is with a calculator, right? But you can't use a calculator, all right? So we're going to use actual arithmetic, and we're going to do this on our own. The easiest way to do this is to just write it out longhand like we were writing it before, okay? And that will help us to see it. So 2 times 2 times 2, and then another times, and then 7 times 7, because there's 2 cubed, right? And there's 7 squared right there. Okay? So now we just go ahead and we just start multiplying across. Now, if you remember with multiplication, one way that might save us a little bit of time here is that we can do anything that we want. Like we can multiply this and then just keep going, okay? Or we could multiply like this if we wanted to. Multiply here first, then we could multiply this, then we could come back. We can do any order we want, right? Do you remember that about multiplication? It's going to give us the same answer. So, I mean, maybe you want to kind of do, let's solve this. So 2 times 2 is 4, and then 4 times 2 is 8, times, and then we can do this one. And 7 times 7 is 49. So then you would come down there, and then you would just probably have to do the 49 times 8. All right, 49 times 8, 9 times 8 is 72, and then 32, 39, 392 would be your answer there. All right, now I told you, remember this, I told you a couple lessons ago that these videos were going to get shorter and shorter. Do you remember that? Well, believe it or not, I'm done with this lesson. I'm done. That was fast. I got it done in like 10 minutes, okay? So sometimes these lessons are going to be a little shorter as we go through the book. Some will be a little longer, some will be a little shorter. But these first few have been kind of like review and things, so I've really wanted to spend some time there. This was a pretty short lesson. Now, in these shorter lessons, that gives you lots of time to, if you don't quite understand something, scroll it back, watch it again, review it, take the time, make sure you get this concept. Because if you're still trying to do 2 cubed as 2 times 3, you're going to mess up the whole question, right? You can't expect to get the right answer if you don't remember how to do 2 cubed. 2 cubed is not 2 times 3. 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8, not 6, not 2 times 3. So if you're not remembering, if you didn't get everything, take the time, scroll it back, watch it again, and when you do that, you're going to find that you, in the future lessons, you're going to be way better off because you took the time to learn this. This is like a foundation, right? Like a house sits on a foundation. If the foundation, we read the story in the Bible, right, where they built the house on the sand, then what happened? The foolish man did that, and the house fell flat. But if you will build your house on the rock, now I know the Bible is talking about the Lord and obviously that we want to build our life on Him. But in math, if you will build your foundation on a rock, and if you will really make sure that your foundation is strong, it will support the house that you're trying to build on it. I mean, this is intermediate math. You still have algebra and you still have geometry and you still have maybe pre-calculus and some of these harder math classes coming up. How are you going to build these on sand? You're not. So make sure that your foundation is good, work hard, take notes, do your work in your books, pay attention to these videos, scroll it back when you don't understand, make sure you get what I'm saying, and then when you get to those harder classes, you're going to be like, okay, I'm good because I built my house, I built my math house on a rock solid foundation. I built it on a good, firm foundation when I was in 7th grade or 8th grade. I worked hard, and now I can do this upper level math. So don't give up, don't quit, don't be like, oh, this is easy, or I'm not going to pay attention. Don't do any of those things. Focus every day in math class, work hard, do your best, and you will have great success later in math, okay? That's all I've got for you. Hope you learned something. Have a good one. Bye-bye.